Martin's study of the work of physicist Fritjof Capra informed much of his approach to how children think and learn, recognizing the dynamic relationship between living organisms and their environment, and how we are all part and parcel of this relationship, joined together in this great web of life.
I start off asking children just a simple question. I say, what are we here for? And hands will go up, and it's not long before they're saying, you know, well, we're here to learn, and you're here to teach, and so you can, very quickly you can get to the point where you can say, okay, so we're here for good teaching and learning, right? Okay, that's our foundation. So everything we do in the classroom has to be for that purpose. Then what I do is I put children into these 4 communities. So you'll have 7 or 8 children in a community, and there'll be one in each corner of the classroom, and the desks are positioned in a horseshoe shape, and they love it when you tell them that they're going to be in charge of their corner, and no one else can go in their corner unless this group gives you permission. And kids like that. They like that. Well, this is mine. You can't come here. This is ours. And each group starts developing a sense of ownership in the classroom for their particular corner. And they're in charge of that corner. How they decorate it, what they put in up there, of course, with teacher-approved materials. And also, they are in charge of keeping it neat and tidy. And I have a point system which I explain to the children. And it's very, very handy. You know, you can, end of the day, you can say, you know, for the first group to have their corner tidy and ready to go home, sitting quiet, 5 points. Well, a job that maybe took 5–10 minutes gets done just like that, and the whole room is tidy, like instantly. And you can do this anytime during the day, of course, and also for getting ready for a lesson. So you might say, okay, first group with a math book open to such and such a page, everything else put away, and you waste no time. In 30 seconds, you're teaching. And it's interesting, the province recently added 15 minutes to the school day. Well, we've already got it, because we don't waste any time at all. And the kids are, and I find that if a kid is a bit disorganized, and rooting around the desk and they can't find anything, it's not long before other group members are showing them how to get organized, how to get themselves functioning better. And so there's this sort of helping out process going on between the children. And you don't have to do anything to teach. You don't have to go, look, you've got to do this, this, and this. Someone will sort it out for them in this group. And they love it. They just, I had a parent at a parent-teacher interview say to me one time, my daughter can't wait for Monday morning. Wow. I thought, well, this is amazing that someone should say that. And I didn't know I was going to write a book at that time, but when we came to look for a title for this book, then we decided that was the thing. You know, you don't forget a statement like that. So we have a discussion-based approach to a lot of things in the classroom, and children are, sometimes we have class-wide discussions, and where I role model to the children the way to organize that, and then they have group discussions too, and they'll sit cross-legged on the floor inside their circle of desks, and they'll discuss different things. They will have one child will be a recorder. I have little jobs for every child, and then they will. We have a planning session where we feed back thoughts that came from each group, and sometimes we're talking about things which we don't want another group to hear. For example, we have group names, and we don't want another group to choose our name. So and we also learn that we're going to just work to talk one person at a time, so we can all understand and listen and hear, and so we learn that. So how many people are we going to hear in this room at one time? 4 in a group discussion, 1 in each group. and you better be quiet, because you don't want another group to hear what you're saying, do you? And so they are, and you get these very quiet, very civilized little discussions going on. And that you can extend that beyond choosing group names to curriculum, all sorts of things. We also talk about the importance of difference, and we have a discussion on that. And I say to the children, I start the discussion off by saying, what would happen if we were all the same? If everything in this was the same? And a few little hands go up, and you start getting, and it's not long before they're saying things like, we'd all have the same car and we wouldn't be able to find it in the parking lot. We'd all be the same age, and then who would be able to teach anyone anything? And what would happen with sports, because we'd all lose, it all becomes silly, nothing works. And then, of course, what about, would it be all be boys or all be girls? So, well, we say, well, who's the most important? Well, of course, the girls say the girls are, the boys say the boys, but it's not, we have a bit of fun, and then it's not long before we realise that both are equally important, and difference is important to life. Without difference, we cannot, there is no life. And this has an amazing effect upon children, especially children who are maybe making fun of another child, especially children who may be being made fun of, and they wish they were like this girl or this boy, and you can hear a pin drop when you make that point. So the importance of difference is crucial. And self-correction, we talk about self-correction too, and children I won't get into it because I'll be here all night, but self-correction is another thing we cover, and children will tell you that they'd rather self-correct than be corrected by the teacher. So when Johnny is misbehaving, and say, Johnny, you want me to come and correct you? You want some teacher correction? No? Oh, good. And so this self-correction process takes place, and also we have classroom rights, where the children decide what rights they want for the classroom. And I make it quite clear to them that we have to have rights which we can give each other. So on a very hot day, for example, I might say, well, Mary, could you tell Johnny that you'd like to have air conditioning in this room, and demand it from him? Well, obviously he can't provide it. So that is not a right we can ask of each other. What can we ask of each other? And we start getting rights being produced by children, like the right to concentrate, the right to feel good about yourself, and they'll have a lot of rights they'll create, and we end up with the rights up on the wall which we refer to. And again, it's all around good teaching and learning. What do we need to create that? And I always remember Charlie, who's in my room, is a very bright boy. He put his hand up. Well, he says, if we can discuss everything, I think we ought and have rights. I think we ought to have the right to do no work every afternoon. So, that's the only thing when you open this up to children, you have to field a few things that you don't expect. So, but that's okay. And so I said, well, that's okay. That's not a bad idea, Charlie. That I think if we can get all their parents to write a letter saying that they're okay with that, and the principal's all right with it too, we could probably do that. Well, of course, they immediately see that's not going to fly, so that little bit of humour is over and we can carry on. And so all these processes enable a recognition of others' thoughts, recognition of people's feelings, an appreciation of others, and it's all part of experiential learning. And all this can run alongside the learning of curriculum. It doesn't have to be separated. It's a way of being in the classroom. Also, I also teach children how to do jot notes during the lesson. I can get grade 4 or 5 children, grade 4s and 5 children and older, taking down jot notes on anything, on any curriculum topic, and they write them down, and then they will write them up in their own words afterwards. I can get them doing it from books, so and they get into the idea of writing jot notes, putting the book away, and then writing it in their own words. And one of the main things I like about it is it enables children to take ownership for their learning. And and it's not, I didn't do it all the time. I just did it once in a while. Actually get them to do jot notes. And I remember one time I was teaching grade 5s at WP Bate, and we were going to take the children to an exhibition. And so we did all the planning ahead of it and so on, and all ready to go the next day. And one little boy puts his hand up and says, "Can we do jot notes when we go to the exhibition?" I wasn't going to ask him to do that. I said, "Oh yeah, you can, it's a good idea." And the kid said, "Oh, we can take jot notes." Like, you know, what luck. So, and so I said, "Yeah, well, okay, you bring along a notepad and a pencil." And so they all did. The next day we went to an exhibition, and they have all these display booths with people there to talk to the children about what the booth is about. And there's my kids taking jot notes. and these presenters were sort of, whoa. And they were really impressed with my kids. All of this process and this sharing of building the learning environment in the classroom, where we all work together at this and we all feel part of it, helps to build a mutual regard, this culture of mutual regard in the classroom. You still come home at the end of the day tired because you pour a lot of energy into the children, but you're not coming home tired because you had to deal with this fight or this bully or this disruption. And not that it can't happen, sometimes it can, but generally speaking, you got a harmonious room. And children become ever more skilled in being thoughtful, effective people, not only within their own community group, but in the classroom community as a whole. This means that learning opportunities are capitalized upon with increasing effectiveness, whether it be interpersonal relationships or taking ownership for learning and curriculum. For teacher and children, the school year becomes interesting, enjoyable and effective. Curriculum learning, therefore, is also poised to be seen by children as interesting, enjoyable and effective. And now I'd like Ingrid. Where are you, Ingrid? Ingrid is a teacher that I've worked with in her grade 5 classroom, 4-5 classroom, and she's graciously offered to come to the book launch to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Yes, I was just, I had the opportunity to learn about the 4 Communities classroom from Shannon. Shannon and I started team teaching together a few years ago, and she had been doing the 4 Communities classroom already for a couple of years before I worked with her, and she described it to me, and I thought that just sounded wonderful. So I was very intrigued by it, and so Shannon called Martin, and Martin came and coached me through beginning the 4 Communities classroom. And it was wonderful to see him speaking. The manner with which he spoke to the kids really creates this warm atmosphere. His gentle voice and his encouragement with the children really gives them a sense of belonging and a positive sense of wanting to take part without fear of maybe making a mistake or saying the wrong thing. And one of the quotes that Martin has in his book is that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And I think that's just a key point in terms of teaching. And Martin's 4 Community classroom allows that to happen. He allows the kids to become excited about what they're doing and gives them input into their learning. They have a voice, they learn to respect one another, they are creative, they ask questions, and by being engaged in their learning, they light that fire. And I think this process really gives a wonderful opportunity for that to take place. So Shannon was my teaching partner, not anymore, but she's going to say a few words too.
Well, I met Martin probably about 12 years ago. I was in a new school, new community. After registration day, it happened upon I had a new grade level as well that I never taught before. And so by March of that year, I was feeling a little bit frustrated and was introduced to Martin, and he came in. And actually in March of that year, he helped set up my classroom for 4 communities. And the kids bought into it right away, and I bought into it, and I haven't looked back. So I've been doing community building in my classroom now for 12 years. And I've taught it in grade 6, grade 5, grade 4, and now I'm in a grade 3 classroom. And different challenges in a grade 3 classroom, but lots of ways to still make it work. The kids love it, they buy into it, they're excited about sitting and working in groups, and they love the little talk where we talk about how usually in classrooms we sit in rows, and we kind of have that little story about, you know, if you have your parents have friends over, do they sit in a row and have a conversation? And so we pull all the desks into a row and we sit down and we try and have a conversation, and you just think it's hilarious because they know their parents wouldn't do that at home. We have to sit in a group so we can have a conversation. So they love that part. And another thing that they love about the community building is the jobs that they get. They're all assigned jobs and they feel important, and you make the connections that we're a community just like the community of Saskatoon, the community of Saskatchewan, Canada, and we make all kinds of connections. I know when I taught grade 6, we could just make so many connections to the community classroom. And the kids love the ownership of the jobs. They take them very seriously, and they all have a job, they all contribute to the classroom, and they love doing it. We have a talking stick leader who leads the discussions when we have the group discussions. We have a reporter who takes all the notes during the discussions and reports back to the classroom what their group discussed. We have book collectors that collect the books when they need to be collected or things handed out. We have cleanup monitors that help keep the area clean, and they get really involved in that because you get points for having the cleanest group, so they're on their group to make sure their area is left clean. And we have an assistant, so if anyone's sick, they get to fill in any of those jobs. So that's kind of what we do in our classroom. And the kids love it. And like I said, I've been doing it now for 12 years. I wouldn't go back to teaching the way I did before. The way the classroom's set up, they learn so much from each other. We talk about the differences, and it just all connects. And I find all the resources and teaching literature that I read, it's all about building that sense of community. And I think I've been doing this because of Martin. So thank you, Martin. It's been a wonderful journey for me, and I hope that everyone else can experience what I've experienced with the community building classroom thanks to Martin. And now that he has his book out, I hope a lot more people take the time to read it and put it all together and help develop the communities in their classroom.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ingrid and Shannon. Thank you. Has it been 12 years? Oh boy. And now, Susan Eva is a very special person. Susan was, when I was teaching at Lakeview, she was signing for a hearing impaired child in the other grade 5 classroom. It was a large intake. We had 2.5 classes of grade 5s that year. And what happened was that at the end of grade 5, and they went into grade 6, the school mixed the children up in a different order, and again in grade 7, again in grade 8. So there were always some of my ex-grade 5s in one of those rooms where Susan was signing. Anyway, Susan, please come. Thank you.
It was over 20 years ago that I worked in, I think it was a grade 6 or 7 classroom. 7, I think. It was older. I remember the kids were a bit older, and it was 20 years ago when I was interpreting in a classroom at Lakeview School. Now, as an interpreter, you face the classroom all day. So you see a lot of things maybe you don't want to see or shouldn't see, but you see a lot. And as opposed to the teacher who's maybe writing on the board or helping kids individually, you face the class all day, so you really get to get a different perspective on the dynamics of what's going on in the classroom. I noticed right away that several children, actually quite a few children in the classroom, were, well, they just seemed to be different. They really caught my attention. First off, they were really good students. They were exemplary students, and but they stood out from the other kids in many ways. Grade 7 and 8, a lot of times are difficult classrooms to be in. There's, for teachers and students, there's hormones are raging. The boys are showing off with the girls. The girls have little special cliquey groups that others aren't allowed to join, and lots of drama. But this classroom was different. I'm not sure how I made the connection. I think I was just talking to the classroom teacher about things, but then I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I realized that all these kids that I was watching that were just such nice kids and good students had all been in Martin's grade 5 class with the 4 community classroom going on. That was the commonality of it all, was they'd all been in his class. And that's when I approached Martin. I remember that day, it was actually in the staff room over a coffee, and I said, what did you do to them? You had them for a whole year in this classroom. What did you do to those guys? I said, did you put implants? You know, did you implant a computer chip to control their behavior? And after that, we did always refer to them as the implant children. It was kind of funny. But how were they different? How were they different? Well, I kind of thought about it, because that was a long time ago, and made a list of things that I saw in the classroom that I thought were different. They were excellent students. Not necessarily, they weren't all, their abilities there was a wide range. They certainly weren't all brilliant kids, but they were all excellent students. They all did well. They worked hard in class. They used their time wisely. They worked well independently. You didn't have to be on them to keep on task. They focused well. They were always focused and very seldom distracted by things that went on in the classroom. They just had for that age, they had a very mature work ethic. They were all good students, but that wasn't the thing, or the things that kind of drew my attention or kind of popped out at me. It was other areas where they were very different. They all had high self-esteem. They weren't afraid to be themselves. They already had, at this tender age, a sense of themselves, but, you know, as we work hard, adults work hard to develop that. It takes 30 years on the average, but these kids knew who they were comfortable with who they were, and it just made them so pleasant to be around. They had confidence in what they did and in themselves. They participated in class. They had many ideas. If you know, they were asked for ideas, their hands were always up. Creative ideas. They never worried, which I found striking. They never worried what other people thought if they put up their hand and had some, you know, different idea. They never worried what other kids thought, would think about it. And at that age, they're so, the longing to fit in makes them, you know, they want to dress the same, look the same, talk the same, they even walk the same. Grade 8 boys have that walk, right? They all want to be exactly the same, but these kids didn't seem to really be important to them. So it was very refreshing. They did not try to be cool. Right, they weren't into, and there's so much of that at that age group. They didn't try to be cool so they could be popular, but they were popular because they were just such nice kids and so much fun to be around, so everybody liked them. They were friends with everyone and accepted everyone in the classroom. They were friends with kids who they'd gone to school with since kindergarten, as well as kids that they just met that year. So they were friends with everybody, and nobody was left out. Nobody was on the fringes. Seemed to be, and this was, when I was thinking about this, I thought back 20 years ago, there was a lot of bullying. Now we're a lot more aware aware of it, but there was none in the classroom, and no one was left out. Everyone, I think, was comfortable and felt safe. Because these kids accepted everyone, other children followed suit, and it just seemed to spread. They were so respectful of teachers, respectful of, you know, support staff, respectful, but mostly respectful to each other and other students in the classroom. Also, their behavior seemed to, from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year to the end of the year, you could see how their behavior seemed to almost be contagious. It rubbed off on other children, and kids that weren't particularly nice at the beginning seemed to have developed better. They just seemed to be, you know, friendlier, kinder, seemed to have improved. These kids seem to have a calming effect on the classroom. No bullying, no cliques, it's often seen, as you often saw. So basically that's what I saw. That's what I saw in the classroom. It was a great classroom to be in. But one of the things that really amazed me and made me think, and I remember thinking this at the time, was these kids were still exhibiting what I came to believe was the fallout from Martin's grade 5 communities classroom, 4 communities classroom, but 3 years later. So it wasn't just something that went on in the classroom and then the next year was finished or done. It seemed to be something that was maybe long-lasting and maybe even followed them all the way through their lives. And that's what I saw.
Now you see why I just had to have Susan come in. It was a gift because, you know, when you work with children, you work with them for the year, and then they maybe go into the next grade, and you're not with them anymore, and you hope that they're doing okay, but you can't sort of barge into the next teacher's classroom and say, "I'm going to sit here and watch these kids for a bit." You know, that's it, and there was Susan, and she reported all that wonderful stuff back to me. So thank you, Susan. So I'll bring this to a close now, but I would just like to just read one paragraph that's in the book. Instead of constantly working to maintain 25 or 30 children's attention, you'll find that 6, 7 or 8 children in a group tend to self-regulate, requiring only occasional light reminders. It has the effect, in terms of class management, of being a bit like organising the teaching and learning of just 4 children rather than 25 or 30. Thus, much of the regulation of classroom life and much of its learning process starts to be assumed by the children. This, of course, means that teacher energies can be poured into producing good teaching and good learning opportunities. For the 4 communities classroom teacher, classroom management becomes a lighter touch. And thank you all for coming.